I'm sure by this point that just about all of you have gotten the terrible news. On July 11th, 2015, President of Nintendo, Satoru Iwata, passed away from complications with a bile duct growth at just 55 years old. While Iwata recently declined to travel to E3 for the last 2 years due to health problems, I don't think anybody was expecting this, and the news is truly depressing. Because I make videos about all things Nintendo, a lot of you guys have requested that I make a video sharing my thoughts. I was initially hesitant. While I do often make videos to share my feelings about information from Nintendo, something didn't quite sit right with me making a video that could allow me to benefit from someone's death. So some of you expressed that you'd still like to hear something from me and suggested that I could run an impactful video by not adding any advertisements to it. This seemed like a pretty good compromise to me, so I've disabled ads from this video for its lifetime. If you're a Nintendo fan, there's no doubt that you've seen Iwata around before. He was very present throughout many of Nintendo's operations, remembered for his quirky antics and cheery persona, especially in the recent Nintendo Direct videos. Or maybe you've read his excellent Iwata Asks interviews. Iwata was the first president of Nintendo that wasn't related to the Yamauchi family, which had owned Nintendo since its establishment as a playing card company in the late 1800s. And while many of you know Iwata the president, today I wanted to share 4 stories from Iwata's past, linking him to some of my favorite Nintendo games of all time. Iwata wasn't just a businessman, he was a game developer, and he did some amazing things for your favorite games that you might not have ever known. He loved video games, and I think it's only right to remember him by the love that he put into those games. Iwata didn't begin his career at Nintendo, but he was always closely related to them. He worked part-time for a gaming company you might have heard of, called HAL Laboratory in the 80s. And while HAL didn't always make games for Nintendo systems, Iwata's involvement with one big title cemented a relationship with HAL and Nintendo consoles: Kirby's Dream Land. The creation of Kirby and its design goes to Masahiro Sakurai, but Iwata played a key role in helping with its development. Iwata wanted HAL to create a game that was so simple in concept and execution that anyone could pick it up and enjoy it. You'll see this emerge as a major concept in Iwata's work. He wanted everyone to be able to enjoy video games. In a great picture you can find in the Japanese strategy guide for Kirby's Adventure in 1993, you can find adorable drawings of Kirby from Sakurai, Miyamoto, and Iwata. Iwata's text speaks of his accomplishments as an extremely talented man who is both a producer and a programmer. Iwata was incredibly wise with both game creation and investments in video games, a dual threat that would end up shaping the rest of his future. In large part due to his success with Kirby, Iwata was called up to become president of HAL when it met financial struggle in the early 90s. Even as president though, Iwata did a ton of programming for HAL. In fact, he was in many ways a programming savior for a variety of games. Shigesato Itoi, the creator of the Mother franchise, was experiencing setbacks when working with the sequel for the Super Nintendo. Iwata approached him and told him bluntly, "If you keep developing your game this way, it's going to take you 2 years. Or we can start from scratch, and I think we can finish it in half a year." Iwata took Itoi's scenarios and art back to his team, and in 1 month, Iwata had a scrolling map system ready to go. Itoi has gone on record mentioning how critical Iwata was in getting Earthbound in particular on the market. Citing his thoughts on Mother 2, or Earthbound, over in other nations, he recently spoke, "On the back of the package for Mother 2 when it came out, it said, 'Children will become adults, and adults will become children.' The more time passes, the more I agree with that." So there's another character that we now know because of Iwata. The next big project Iwata had a huge hand in was the one with the largest impact on my life, Pokémon. Iwata played a role in founding Creatures Inc., a major company in the creation of Pokémon media. His first project with Pokémon came with the original Pokémon Stadium. The team was working on a way to port the battle system over to the Nintendo 64, when Iwata famously put the code together for 64 battles in a week. Pokemon programmer Shigeki Morimoto noted how shocked he was that Iwata was able to accomplish this, stating, "What kind of company president is this?" Stadium wasn't the only Pokemon game Iwata had his hand in, however. He's widely credited as a savior for Pokemon Gold and Silver. The game developers had a ton of features that they wanted to put into the game, but they ran out of development space on the Game Boy's cartridge size. Iwata famously created a compression tool that allowed Game Freak to shrink the size of their files, giving them the space to fit a majority of the Kanto region in the game as well. I've mentioned a handful of times how Gold and Silver are my favorite Pokemon titles, and a huge part of this is because of the game's enormous 16-badge adventure. When Iwata moved from HAL to Nintendo in 2000, one of his first projects was establishing the Pokemon Company. Without Iwata's help, the huge franchise that we've come to know and love might not have seen the same success. My final story comes from an interview with Japanese site 4Gamer in 2014, just last year, and I think it's a fitting one for a handful of reasons. In the interview, Iwata talks about the struggle of balancing his love for writing code with his new managerial position at Nintendo. Iwata talked about how at night, even after his day job at Nintendo, he would code in his free time and show it to his friends. In the interview, Iwata talks about his final time ever professionally programming for a video game. My actual last work on programming happened when I was working as the general manager of corporate planning at Nintendo. Something happened and the GameCube version of Super Smash Bros. Didn't look like it was going to make its release date, so I sort of did a code review for it. I did the code review, fixed some bugs, read the code and fixed more bugs, read the long bug report from Nintendo, figured out where the problem was and got people to fix those. All in all, I spent about 3 weeks like that, and because of that, the game made it out on time. That was the last time I worked as an engineer in the field. I was right there, sitting by programmers, in the trenches, reading code together, finding the bugs, and fixing them together. I like to imagine Iwata as this retired superhero who hears the cry for help. He's moved on to new things, but he can't resist the urge to put the cape on one last time, for one last mission. Today, this video is going up right as I'm on a flight to Las Vegas for EVO 2015, a fighting game tournament. I'm primarily going to spectate a video game, Smash Bros. Melee, a game that wouldn't have been the same without Iwata's final stand as a programmer. Iwata wasn't your everyday president. He absolutely loved video games to their core, from their design, to their code, to the ways that they can entertain people of all ages. Iwata had a huge influence on a ton of other projects, but I'll never forget the impact he had as a programmer on these 4 franchises, each which has had a tremendous impact on my own life, and in many ways has shaped who I am today. We'll miss you, Iwata, but you'll never be forgotten.